The silence in the meeting room was tangible. 10 executives in suits stared at my final presentation of the Aurora project, the AI system that had consumed 2 years of my life. The screens displayed lines of code and stats that stood as my legacy at Global Tech. Like you can see, Aurora doesn't just learn from the data you feed it. It actually predicts future needs with 97.8% accuracy, I explained, noticing a few of the execs lean forward, clearly impressed. Then Victoria Brooks, our CEO, cleared her throat. That sound cut through the air like a knife. "Emma, thanks for the intro," she said, getting up with that perfect, commercial smile. "Now, for the full technical presentation, I'll hand it over to our special innovation consultant, Grace Brooks." Grace, her 26-year-old daughter, who'd only been hired 6 months ago, got up with a rehearsed smile. I felt my stomach drop. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like if you want more stories like this. "Excuse me," I interrupted, keeping my voice steady even though I was shocked. "I believe there must be some mistake. I've been coordinating this project right from the start, and I prepared the complete presentation." Victoria gave me a frosty look. "Emma, we talked about this yesterday." "No, we didn't talk." My heart was racing, but my voice stayed firm. "It was the board's decision to have a more innovative perspective run this crucial stage," Victoria continued. Nathan, our CTO, frowned. "Victoria, that wasn't discussed at the executive committee." The room grew uncomfortably quiet. Victoria kept her smile, but her eyes made it clear, "You're going to pay for this." "Actually," I said, opening my folder, "I have something important to share before we go any further." I pulled out a sealed envelope and a flash drive. Victoria's expression flickered momentarily. "Robert Miller, the founder of this company, gave me these before he stepped back. He told me to only open them in a very specific situation." I plugged the flash drive into the central computer. Whenever someone tried to steal credit for the Aurora project, the main screen showed a video. Robert Miller, the legendary founder of Global Tech, appeared, sitting in his office. "If you're watching this video, it means Victoria Brooks tried to cut Emma Wilson out of the Aurora project," he said gravely. "Unfortunately, that confirms my doubts about her character. For that reason, 3 months ago, I secretly transferred 52% of Global Tech's shares to Emma." Gasping filled the room. Victoria turned pale. "This transfer was legally registered and verified," I continued as I handed out copies of the documents. "Effectively, I've been the majority owner of Global Tech ever since." Jessica, my assistant, entered the room carrying a box of files. "Thanks for bringing that over, Jessica," I said as she placed the box on the table. "Over the last few weeks, I've gathered evidence that explains Ms. Brooks' behavior." I projected emails onto the main screen, conversations between Victoria and 3 competitors. The documents detailed offshore bank transfers, made in exchange for early access to Aurora's specs. "Victoria's been selling our intellectual property for at least 8 months, I explained. Plus, Grace's academic credentials were faked. She doesn't have a master's in AI from Stanford like her resume claims." Grace looked genuinely shocked. "Mom?" Victoria remained impassive, though I could see her breathing come in quick, visible gasps. "There are also records of corporate funds being diverted to personal accounts," I went on. "About 3.4 million got transferred to shell companies linked to the Brooks family." Victoria finally stood up. "This is all a staged farce. Emma clearly cooked up these documents out of jealousy over my daughter's success." Meanwhile, Grace was reading through the emails with growing horror. "Grace, honey, don't pay any mind to this," Victoria ordered. "Remember what we talked about regarding your future here." "About what, Mom?" "About giving me credit for work I didn't do." Grace trembled. You said it was just going to be a joint presentation, not this. You're my daughter. You deserve more than just being an assistant. I was never her assistant, Grace protested, glancing at me. I never worked directly on the project. You told me we were revamping the presentation for clarity. Victoria grabbed her daughter's arm. Don't be naive. That's just how the corporate world works. Grace backed off. I don't want any part of this. If the board allows it, I'll testify about everything I know. The emergency board meeting lasted 6 hours. I presented all the evidence while Victoria stubbornly denied everything. When we finally voted, the result was unanimous. Victoria would be removed immediately and her legal actions handled by the proper authorities. Given the circumstances, the board agrees that Emma Wilson, as the majority shareholder and proven leader of the Aurora project, should serve as interim CEO, announced the board president. When the room cleared, I sat there, absorbing the magnitude of the events. Nathan came over. Were you aware of this all along? He asked. No. Robert handed me those documents 6 months ago, but he told me not to open them unless it was absolutely necessary. He said it was a test for Victoria, a chance for her to prove her worth. And she spectacularly failed, Nathan observed. Yeah. I think Robert had his suspicions about her for a long time, but he needed real proof. And now? What's your first move as CEO? I thought of Grace, standing alone in the waiting room. Now I'm going to give someone a second chance to do things the right way. I found Grace alone in the waiting room, staring out the window at the skyline of skyscrapers. Her eyes were red, and her fingers nervously twisted the edge of her impeccable blazer. Mind if I sit? I asked, pointing to the chair next to her. Grace nodded without really looking at me. I sat down, keeping a respectful distance. You must hate me, she finally murmured. Actually, no, I replied calmly. I think you were just used, like all of us. Grace finally turned to face me, her eyes wide with disbelief. Really? After everything that's happened? Look, Grace, I'll be straight with you. I keep thinking about the difference between someone who's truly corrupt and someone who's just misguided. I chose my words carefully. Your mom built an empire on manipulation. How much of that worldview did she pass on to you? Grace ran her hands over her face. Ever since I graduated, she kept saying I needed some strategic shortcuts to make up for the discrimination women face in tech. That everyone at the top got there by playing dirty. She took a deep breath. But today, when I saw those emails, I realized it wasn't about equality at all. It was just dishonesty. And what do you want to do now? I asked. Honestly, I don't know. My career is wrecked before it even had a chance to start. Who's going to hire Victoria Brooks' daughter after all this? I studied her face for a moment. Behind that carefully calculated sophistication, I saw something that reminded me of who I was years ago, someone trying to prove her worth. I have a proposal, I said. Global Tech has this training program for fresh tech graduates. It starts with the basics, product development, understanding systems, real teamwork. Grace frowned. So you're offering me an entry-level position. What I'm offering you is a real chance. No shortcuts, no nepotism, no favoritism. A path to build a reputation that's all your own. Why? What do you get out of it? Maybe I believe that people deserve a second chance when they show they can learn from their mistakes. The way you stood up and testified against your own mom showed real courage. Grace was silent for several minutes while she processed the offer. I could see the conflict on her face, pride battling the need for redemption. It'd be tough, she finally admitted. People would be talking behind my back. Yeah, they would. In the beginning. But over time, your work will speak for itself. And if I fail, then you fail, you learn, and you try again. That's how everyone does it. Grace hesitated, then extended her hand. I'd like to accept your offer, Ms. Wilson. Or should I say, CEO Wilson? Emma works just fine, I replied, shaking her hand. The program kicks off in 2 weeks. And Grace? It might be tough, but it's worth building something that's truly yours. When she left, I couldn't help but think about how our lives are shaped by the opportunities we get, and by the courage to take the tougher road when needed. The main auditorium at Global Tech was packed the next morning. Investors from all over the world had flown in to witness the unveiling of the Aurora project. The events of the past 24 hours had spread like wildfire, creating an electric atmosphere you could practically feel. I adjusted my microphone and scanned the audience. Among the faces, I saw Nathan giving me a discreet thumbs up and Jessica organizing the support materials. Good morning, everyone. I'm Emma Wilson, the chief developer of the Aurora project, and I paused for a moment, still not used to the title, interim CEO of Global Tech. Rumors rippled through the crowd. Some investors exchanged nervous glances. I decided to address the elephant in the room. I know many of you have heard about the recent changes in our leadership. Yes, unforeseen circumstances occurred. But we're here today to talk about the future, not just of global tech, but about bringing ethical AI into our society. The lights dimmed, and the Aurora logo lit up on all the screens. The Aurora project isn't just a technological breakthrough, it's a reinvention of how intelligent systems can learn, adapt, and serve humanity. For the next 40 minutes, I took the audience through the technical details of the project. I showed how Aurora could predict medical needs before symptoms even showed up, optimize supply chains to reduce food waste, and personalize education to suit different learning styles. What makes Aurora revolutionary isn't just its ability to process data, I explained, but its integrated system of values. We built in essential ethical guidelines to prevent the technology from being used for unauthorized surveillance, social manipulation, or algorithmic discrimination. I noticed several investors scribbling notes. One of them, a representative from an ethical investment fund in Scandinavia, couldn't help but smile openly. At Global Tech, we believe that the most powerful technology comes with the greatest responsibility. That's why we're setting up an independent ethical oversight board to ensure Aurora is always used to improve lives, never to control them. I took a deep breath before wrapping up. Ladies and gentlemen, transparency is going to be the cornerstone of the new Global Tech. Every contract for implementing Aurora will include public audit clauses. Our algorithms will be open for academic review. And our business partners will have to commit to the same ethical standards. I explained how this approach, while it might limit some short-term gains, would assure long-term sustainability and public trust. When I finished the presentation, there was a few seconds of silence before the room exploded in applause. During the Q&A session that followed, I was pleasantly surprised by the enthusiasm. Several investors expressed relief at the new direction of the company. This approach makes sense not just morally but financially, commented a veteran investor. Public trust in technology is at an all-time low. You're positioning Global Tech as the company that can restore it. After the formal presentation, investors crowded around me with eager questions and partnership proposals. One of them, a CEO of a major healthcare firm, firmly shook my hand. My company was about to pull our interest in Global Tech because of all the rumors about shady practices, he admitted. But today, you've not only saved that partnership, you've expanded its potential. As the crowd dispersed, Jessica came over with a tablet. Emma, We just got confirmations for investments totaling 1.2 billion. That's 3 times more than we expected. Exhausted yet beaming, I finally allowed myself to feel the weight of what we'd accomplished. Aurora wasn't just a product. It was a new philosophy of technology that could truly benefit humanity. 3 days later, while setting up my new office, I received a message. Robert Miller was requesting a video call. My heart started racing. I hadn't spoken to my mentor since he had stepped back for his health treatment. Robert, I greeted when his face appeared on the screen. Despite his obvious weight loss, his eyes still held that familiar intensity. "How are you feeling?" "Better now," he replied with a slight smile. "Especially after watching what's unfolded this week. You've exceeded all of my expectations, Emma." "You knew Victoria would do this," I stated more than asked. Robert sighed. "I suspected it. Victoria was always brilliant, but I doubted her commitment to the company's core values. I needed someone who understood that tech without ethics is just raw power without responsibility." "Why didn't you tell me about the shares? Why the test?" He looked at me for a moment. "Because I needed to know for sure that you'd do the right thing even under extreme pressure. If I'd just announced you as my successor, Victoria and other execs would have dismissed my decision as the sentimental whim of a sick man. So you sacrificed your own chess game," I said. "And you turned that sacrifice into checkmate." Robert smiled. "But there's one thing that really surprised me, your decision about Grace Brooks." I sat upright in my chair. "You disapprove?" "Not at all. I'm impressed. It would have been easier just to kick her out along with her mother. Even more understandable, really. She deserves a chance to find out who she is without her mother's influence," I replied. "Besides, she had the courage to do the right thing at that crucial moment, even if it meant betraying her own family." Robert nodded thoughtfully. "You know what really defines a leader, Emma? It's not just about making tough decisions during a crisis. It's about seeing potential where others only see flaws. It's about giving second chances when they are deserved. You really think she'll do well? That's up to her now. But you created the conditions for her potential success, and that says more about your leadership than any financial report." We talked for another hour about the next steps for the company and the Aurora project. When I was about to end the call, Robert paused. "Emma, I built this company on the belief that technology can elevate humanity. Over the years, I've seen many companies lose that purpose in the pursuit of profit. What you did this week wasn't just about saving a project or a company, it was about reaffirming our soul." His words stuck with me long after the screen went dark. I thought about all the ways power can corrupt and how important it is to keep your moral compass working, especially when decisions affect thousands of lives. That night, as I walked down the silent corridors of global tech, I passed by labs and desks where people believed they were building something meaningful. I silently promised to honor that trust, not only as the temporary guardian of a company, but as a protector of a vision for technology that serves humanity instead of controlling it. A year went by in a whirlwind of constant changes. I was sitting by the panoramic window of my office, watching the global tech campus now span 3 extra blocks. The new buildings, with their gleaming solar panels and vertical gardens, weren't just physical expansions, they were tangible expressions of our renewed philosophy. The Aurora project had transformed from an ambitious promise into a reality that was reshaping entire industries. Our system had been implemented in over 200 hospitals around the world, cutting misdiagnoses by 42% and optimizing personalized treatments. 6 governments had adopted adapted versions for sustainable urban planning. 3 of the world's top universities were using Aurora to tailor educational experiences. But it wasn't just the numbers that made me smile over my morning coffee. It was the cultural change that had spread throughout the company like the roots of a healthy tree. Jessica, now the director of operations, knocked on my door and came in with a folder of reports. "Here are the last quarter's results," she said as she placed the folder on my desk. "We grew revenue by 28% and landed 34% more new contracts. More importantly, our employee satisfaction survey hit 92%. "And what about the diversity initiative?" I asked, flipping through the papers. "We surpassed our goals. Now 47% of our developers are women, up from 22% last year. Our internship program for underrepresented communities has 3 times as many applications as we can handle." Nathan then appeared at the door with that discreet smile that always signaled good technical news. "The Aurora 3.0 passed all security tests," he announced. "And that bug we were worried about. Grace's team found an elegant solution." Mentioning Grace still stirred mixed reactions among some of the older employees, but things were slowly changing. She had surprised all of us, even herself. Starting out as a junior developer, she had worked tirelessly to prove her worth. She never asked for special treatment, often staying later than everyone else to learn, contribute, and rebuild her identity independent of her mother's shadow. "How's she fitting in with the new team?" I asked Nathan. "Exceptionally well. That innovative approach to data privacy we rolled out last month. That was her idea. The girl has a natural talent for spotting vulnerabilities that nobody else catches." A notification popped up on my screen. It was time for the quarterly meeting with our independent ethics board. This had been one of the first changes I initiated. A diverse panel of external experts, philosophers, civil rights lawyers, tech ethics specialists, given veto power over any Aurora deployment that might compromise our core principles. On my way to the conference room, I walked past the new Open Innovation Lab where developers worked side by side with community activists and everyday users to make sure our products met real needs rather than just growth metrics. The transformation of global tech went far beyond the impressive numbers in our financial reports. We were redefining what it meant to be a successful tech company in the 21st century. The ethics board was already gathered when I arrived. Dr. Lena Patel, a renowned technology philosopher, led the discussion on deploying Aurora in the criminal justice system. Although Aurora's predictive capabilities are revolutionary, she argued, we need to put in additional safeguards before approving its use for sentencing or parole decisions. The potential to perpetuate historical biases is significant. Rather than dismiss these concerns like the old management might have, our tech team took the feedback seriously. Together, we developed a plan for more tests and reviews by civil rights experts. After the meeting, I went on my usual rounds around the campus. I stopped to chat with engineers, the cleaning crew, interns, something I started on my first day as permanent CEO. I truly believe effective leadership means understanding every level of the organization. In the cafeteria, I saw Grace sitting alone with her laptop. I walked over with my tray. "Mind if I join you?" She smiled and pushed her papers aside. "Sure. I was just finishing up a presentation for tomorrow's hackathon." Sitting down next to her, I asked, "How are you feeling after a whole year here?" Grace thought for a moment. "Honestly, it was brutal at first. I felt like everyone was expecting me to fail, or worse, that I'd turn out just like my mom." She paused. "But then I realized the only person I really had to convince was myself." "And did you manage to convince yourself?" "I'm getting there." She smiled. "For the first time, I'm proud of my work because I know it's truly mine. No one can take that away from me." I noticed a spark in her eyes, not the calculating ambition her mom once showed, but genuine satisfaction from someone who had finally found her purpose. How is she doing, by the way? I asked, referring to Grace's visits to Victoria, who was still on house arrest. Same as always. She thinks she was wronged. She still doesn't understand why I picked the harder path, as she puts it. Grace sighed. But I'm learning that I can't change other people, only myself. Before I headed back to work, Grace hesitated. Emma, thank you. Not just for the opportunity, but for showing me there's another way to succeed, a way that lets me sleep at night. Watching her walk away, I reflected on how the biggest change at global tech wasn't in the impressive numbers or revolutionary tech. It was in the people, who now understood that real success and integrity don't have to be mutually exclusive. The day ended with a video conference with our international partners. Once the call was over, the golden light of sunset bathed my office. I picked up the old desk clock that had belonged to Robert, his gift when I officially took over as permanent CEO 6 months ago. To remind you, he had said, that time is our only truly limited resource. Use it to build something that lasts much longer than you. Tonight marks exactly 1 year since that turbulent meeting that changed global tech's course. I'm standing on the stage in our main auditorium, looking out at the faces of 500 employees gathered for our first annual Technology with Purpose conference. When I started working on the Aurora project, I began my speech. I imagined creating a system that could anticipate needs and streamline processes. What I didn't foresee was this project transforming not only our company, but each one of us personally. I looked across the audience. Some of the faces had been with me from the start, others had joined in, drawn by our new reputation. All united by a shared vision of technology that lifts up rather than exploits. True success isn't measured by market value or technological breakthroughs, I continued. It's measured by the positive impact we have on the world. By the legacy we build together. The screens around the room showcased images of projects enabled by Aurora, early warning systems for natural disasters that saved thousands of lives, educational platforms bridging learning gaps in underserved communities, preventive healthcare systems detecting diseases before they became critical. This is just the beginning of the journey. The challenges ahead will be even greater, and the ethical questions even more complex. But we will tackle them with the values that now define our organization: transparency, integrity, and accountability. After the formal speech, we held a panel discussion where employees from all levels shared their visions for the company's future. Grace, now leading our privacy and protection initiative, eloquently spoke about the importance of building safeguards right from the start. The celebration continued in the campus garden, where animated conversations blended with soft music. I stepped aside for a moment of personal reflection. My phone buzzed, a message from Robert, watching the live stream. Extremely proud of you. You're not just running a company, you're building a legacy. His words echoed deeply. As I passed the memorial we'd set up in the center of the campus, a sculpture representing Robert's original vision for the company, I realized that legacies aren't built overnight. They are forged through thousands of small, everyday decisions, each reflecting the values we choose to uphold, especially when the easy road would mean compromising them. Jessica found me, looking at the sculpture. Dream day, isn't it? She said. It almost feels unreal, I admitted. I remember when we were just a small team working on what most thought was impossible. Did you ever imagine we'd get this far? I thought about it for a moment. Not on this scale. But I've always believed in the transformative potential of technology, when it's guided by the right values. And what about your own future? Jessica asked. More than a decade dedicated to this company. Don't you ever want to do something different? The question caught me off guard, but I considered it seriously. When I was younger, success meant personal recognition, breaking records, proving my worth. But now, I gestured to the vibrant campus around us. I've come to see that the greatest achievement isn't what we build for ourselves. It's what we enable others to build. I saw Nathan chatting enthusiastically with new engineers. Grace was helping a group of interns feel included. Veteran developers were mentoring emerging talent. This was the true essence of what we'd built, not just a company, but an ecosystem that allowed each person to reach their full potential while contributing to something far bigger than themselves. To answer your question, I continued, I'm not looking for a different next chapter. I'm committed to deepening this one. Later that night, after the celebration ended, I returned to my office. In the top drawer of my desk lay the original envelope Robert had given me a year ago. Along with the shares was a letter I'd never shared with anyone. Emma, it read, power without purpose is empty. Wealth without values is poverty disguised. I'm entrusting you not just with a company, but with a vision of what technology can be when we serve humanity instead of exploiting it. Your real test won't be how much you can conquer, but what you choose to build with what you've conquered. I carefully folded the letter. Robert's words had been my guiding compass throughout this transformative year. In an industry obsessed with disruption at any cost, we chose a different path, innovation with integrity, growth with purpose. I gazed out the window at the city lights below. In thousands of homes, hospitals, schools, and businesses, Aurora was quietly making life better, not as a tool of control or exploitation, but as a platform that amplified the best of humanity. And that, I realized, is the true measure of success, not the achievements we list on our resumes or the awards that hang on our walls, but the positive impact our work has on others' lives. The legacy that persists long after we leave the room. As I turned off the lights in my office, I felt profound gratitude for the journey that had brought me here, with all its unexpected twists and turns. Victoria's betrayal, painful as it was at the time, ended up being the catalyst for something far greater than I could have ever imagined. Sometimes our biggest challenges turn out to be our greatest gifts, hidden opportunities to redefine not only our own future, but the future of everyone our work touches. And with that thought, I found deep peace and a renewed purpose to guide the next chapters ahead.